What I wanted to talk about today was herbalism. I'm calling it jamu because jamu is the word for a sort of a herb or a medicinal herbal drink made in Java. But strictly speaking, I'm sort of mixing a lot of traditions here, not simply the jamu tradition. Just to tell you about jamu, it probably originated in the Kratons of Yogyakarta, Jogja and Surakarta, Solo. But it's ubiquitous, certainly across Java. You'll even find it in Jakarta. And ladies known as Ibu Jamu will come round in the morning selling it pre-prepared. Really, the benefit is that you should go for a consultation with a herbalist. So it's closer to the way that I do it, in fact. Often known as a Dukun Jamu, who will look at your specific requirements and make a recommendation. But as I say, it's much more common to have these pre-prepared jamus that are sold by Ibu Jamus. The first, I was going to call it a herb, but I guess it's a spice. The first I want to talk about is turmeric. Now, it's the dry season here in Java. So all I can show you is some rather dried up plants there. So yeah, unfortunately, you can just about see what the leaves look like when it's growing. It's just a wonderful, wonderful spice. It has very, very strong antiseptic properties. So it's often used for cleaning wounds. It's actually used for cleaning circumcision blades in remote parts of Indonesia. So you can tell it's very strong antiseptic properties. It's an anti-inflammatory, so a little bit like ibuprofen. And so therefore can help with things like irritable bowel disease, pancreatitis, arthritis. Probably for that reason. It also regulates blood pressure. It regulates the blood pressure, so therefore it's good in fighting heart disease. And it could be used for preventing certain types of cancer. Probably breast cancer would be one, prostate cancer, pancreatic cancer. It may be useful in type 2 diabetes. Osteoarthritis, so I've already said arthritis, but it seems to be good in treating osteoarthritis. As I say, it might be useful. It's certainly felt to be useful with type 2 diabetes, but it might be useful in type 1 diabetes, particularly people who are insulin resistant. It may be able to reverse or delay Alzheimer's disease. It's possible that it works rather like Prozac in treating depression. It certainly improves skin health, things like eczema and psoriasis. Protects the body from free radicals. So maybe that's how it works against things like cancer and Alzheimer's disease. Therefore, probably also it works as an anti-aging substance. And it may prevent eye degeneration. So, all in all, it's a wonderful, wonderful spice that should be a part of any sort of herbal thing that you propose to take. The next thing we use I'm going to talk about, are two different types of galangal. The first is the regular galangal, and the second we know as temankunchi, or finger root, but the official name is Bosenbergia rotunda. Now they both, and the other that we could use is tremulawak. They have similar health benefits, so I'll talk about them together. and they're very similar to ginger, and also very similar to turmeric. So excuse me for repeating myself at times. So very good for helping inflammation. Very good for, I don't like using the word immune booster, because I've come to find that that's something of a misnomer. And what it does certainly is, if you have a compromised immune system, it helps the immune system. It increases the sperm count. Again, it's believed to protect against cancer. It's a natural antimicrobial, so particularly active with certain types of microbes. It's very useful, particularly the streptococcus, the sore throat. It's good for your skin health. It boosts hydrolonic acid production. It helps the digestive system and can stop hiccups. It's believed that it helps the brain health and again protects against depression, reduce cholesterol levels, fights respiratory disease, can boost cardiac health, and it's supposedly very good for stopping things like a dry scalp, dandruff, hair thinning, split ends, etc. It's believed it may help with nausea. Now, what I've not included here is ginger, because being the dry season, we haven't got any growing in the garden. But I'd normally use ginger, and very similar properties to galangal and to turmeric. But it's worth just mentioning them. Supposed to be very good for nausea, especially morning sickness. Can help with weight loss, osteoarthritis again. Drastically reduces lower blood sugars and improve heart disease factors. Can treat chronic indigestion. May reduce menstrual pain, lower cholesterol levels. May help to prevent cancer, help the brain's function, especially against Alzheimer's disease, and a general fight against infections. So ginger is something that I think really is a must. It's just simply that we haven't got any in the garden at the moment. And something that is so common in Indonesia is lemongrass or seri, which has amazing health properties in its own rights. Again, it's an antioxidant, can help actually scavenge free radicals in your body. Its antimicrobial properties, particularly good for tooth decay. Anti-inflammatory properties, so may help with things like heart disease and stroke. May help with cancer. Potent anti-cancer abilities against some cancer cells, certainly. Promotes healthy digestion. It's probably a diuretic, so it's probably quite useful in for slimming. It reduces systolic blood pressure, although it may lead to a mild increase in diastolic blood pressure. It helps to regulate your cholesterol. Not only is it a natural diuretic, but it helps in terms of being a sort of a detox. So it can help with weight loss in many ways. And finally, it's used to relieve premenstrual syndrome, or is it stress? PMS, anyway. Yeah, it's helped for that. So it's helped for the menstrual cramps. And now I've got an actual oil, which is oil of clove or minyak checker as we call it. Now, as a child growing up in England, or in the 60s in England, we always had tincture of oil of cloves in our medicine cabinet, and it was taken for toothache. It was a very common remedy. You don't seem to see it now. Indeed, when I mentioned that I was using it to a dentist the last time I was in England, he thought it rather strange. But yeah, it used to be very popular, and it has somewhat sedative effects, and it can be used in cough medicines. It moisturises dry skin and helps with skin problems. It reduces some types of pain, particularly toothache, which is what I sort of put it in for. I've heard that it can be used for earache as well. It can be used for relieving the pain of bunions or warts. It soothes irritations, particularly something like poison ivy. It improves the blood circulation. It can be used as an insect repellent. It's used in many weed killers. It helps with unpleasant odours. It increases the libido or the sex drive, and it reduces stomach pain. So an excellent oil to be using. As I say, I use it largely for the toothache. So I boil up all of these ingredients together. I might add a little bit more water to the boiling process. What I'm really looking for is a lovely golden colour from that turmeric, and once it's got that golden colour, I then turn off the heat to allow it to cool down. And once it's cooled down, I then decant it into a bottle, and it's that I use every morning and every evening for a gargle. Now, people who use Ayurvedic oil pulling techniques seem to recommend that you should gargle for, something like 30 minutes at a time. Well, I don't do anything like that. I perhaps gargle a little bit longer than you would with a proprietary mouth gargle you buy from the chemists, but nothing too extreme. And as I say, I just do it every evening, every morning. If I happen to be away, I probably won't take any with me, and I seem to be fine. But it's a regime I've got into, and it seems to be very useful as a part of my general dental hygiene. Now, something that does grow in the garden that I don't actually use in my jamu, but my wife uses, is we call it Chinchou. You may have seen it called grass jelly, particularly if you're in a Chinese supermarket. You might have seen cans of a drink with grass jelly, or it's used in bubble tea as well. And basically you boil up the leaves, and it turns into this jelly-like substance. But it does have very good health properties. In particular, we use it for an upset stomach because it helps the digestive system to get to an optimal level of sugar compounds. And it's also is somewhat antibacterial. It helps promote weight loss because it's got a lot of beneficial nutrients in it, and it gives you some of those nutrients that you don't get if you're on a diet. Can help to prevent cancer. It's believed to, in fact, to be quite a powerful anti-cancer antidote. It can help to prevent diabetes. because it controls the high blood sugar levels of diabetes. It can be used to treat fevers and sore throats, and it speeds up the bowel movement. The fibre and the water in the jelly helps to channel your food through the digestive tract, therefore making it easier to defecate. So quite a useful herb that I don't actually include in my daily jamu. But as I say, my wife makes a drink with it called Chinchou, or she also uses ice chendal. We mix it with other things called ice chendal. Particularly something we drink when we're breaking our fast during Ramadan. Now, something that I consider essential in my jamu, and indeed an essential herb that I use, I know as down bidara. In Arabic it's known as Sidr, and in English it's called Lote. And it's a tree that is very special to Muslims. And I actually use it because it's believed that it helps to get rid of jinn. So I include it in my jamu, but also if I'm really concerned about jinn, then I will bathe in leaves of it. And I do sometimes buy oil of Sidr and apply the oil of Sidr onto the skin. But it has quite amazing health benefits in its own right. And so yes, you can use it for washing the hair and washing the body, and it makes everything, well, particularly the hair, more voluminous and shiny. Sidr leaves are used for cleansing the body, or cleansing the corpse, so cleansing the body of the dead. And it's used because it believes it rids them of jinns. It's used for removing black magic. It's believed that it can cure male impotence. It can reduce obesity, removes dandruff from the hair, makes you more energetic, increases the appetite, reduces a cough, and leads to better digestion. So all in all, well, we do believe it's a magical plant, and hence its use. Now, another pretty essential plant is what I know as down Kellor. In the West, it's known as Moringa. And it's such a nutritious plant, and it grows so easily in the tropics that it's really almost a wonder food. So nutritionally rich, so much more so than things that we believe are superfoods, like carrots and oranges. It's massively rich in vitamins A, C, B1, B2, B3, B6. Also rich in magnesium, iron, calcium, phosphorus and zinc. So in parts of Indonesia, people make it into a soup, and it's a main part of their diet. And I mean, it really should be used in much more. Very rich in amino acids, 18 different types of amino acids. Fights inflammation, so very good for rheumatism, rheumatoid arthritis. Rich in antioxidants, so probably useful in fighting cancer. Lowers blood sugar levels, lowers cholesterol. It protects the liver, and is therefore very useful in detoxification, and can be used for detoxifying from heavy metals, particularly arsenic toxicity. It's very good for the stomach, particularly if you're suffering from constipation, bloating, etc. improves the bones, good for fighting osteoporosis and make the teeth strong. It's also an antiseptic and can fight off bacterial infections, beneficial to wound healing, and reduces the clotting time of blood, improves lactation in nursing mothers, helps to burn body fat, so is good for slimming, good for skin and hair, reduces dandruff, is very good for the nervous system, helps the brain and works as a neuroenhancer, and in general it's very, very good for detoxification. Just a word of warning, because you can buy Moringa powder in the West, and it's possible that contains things like too high a level of lead in it, and it might not be from the leaves but the bark, and not really recommended for pregnant women if that's the case. But as you can see, I just cut it fresh from my garden. Now, the pride and joy of my garden are my passion fruit vines, or marquesa as they're known here in Indonesia. And of course, passion fruit is a lovely fruit, very high in a number of nutrients, particularly vitamin C, vitamin A, iron, rich in antioxidants, good source of fibre, preventing constipation. It doesn't cause a steep increase in blood sugar, so therefore is good for people with diabetes. It improves insulin sensitivity because of a lot of vitamin C in it. It's good for the immune system. It helps. There's a lot of potassium in it, so it's good for the heart. But the main reason for it is passion fruit, or particularly the leaves, are known as Passiflora. And Passiflora is a very well-known herbal medicine used in the West to help people to sleep and to reduce anxiety. So it decreases stress in people, and it improves their sleep. So a very useful leaf to have. And even though maybe I don't need it on a daily basis, I put it in my jamu every day because of, reducing a little bit of anxiety is no bad thing, is it? The next leaf that I want to talk to you about, I would call Downsiri Mera, but it's the red betel nut leaf. Now, I have to admit that the main use for this in Java is for tightening the female's vagina. Now, there's quite a few preparations that claim to do that. Well, in fact, I know they work that do that, but I'm not too certain if they work by simply drying the vagina or they actually tighten it. What I would warn you is, anyone listening to this thinking, oh, wow, that's wonderful. They reputedly bring the menopause on early. But, I do know from experience. I don't have a vagina myself, but I know from experience that it definitely works. But it's got a number of other reasons for using it. Maybe a part of the reason why it's particularly associated with women's health is that it's good for getting rid of fungi. Good for getting rid of genital fungi. Other things that it's used for, it's a very good analgesic, so it offers quite instant relief from pain. It eases constipation because it's very powerful antioxidant and clears free radicals, restores the normal pH in the body, and therefore helps upset stomachs. It improves digestion, and that's why these betel nuts and betel leaves are chewed as palm by particularly on the Indian subcontinent after a meal. So it's anti-flatulent, so it stops you farting basically. Increases the metabolism, increasing circulation, stimulating the intestines to absorb the vitamins and nutrients. Very good for respiratory issues, common cold and cough, but also for asthma. The antifungal properties that I've already spoken of. So you could also use it for things like athlete's foot. I don't know how many of you have ever had this. It's known as Singapore ear, I think, but it's just a fungal infection of the ear that many of us suffer from in the tropics. Good for oral health. It's antimicrobial, so very good for cavities, plaque, tooth decay. I didn't know that actually. I ought to start using it in my gargle, putting it in earlier. Very, very good for joint pains. Loads of anti-inflammatory properties. Help ease discomfort in joints, particularly things like rheumatoid arthritis. And you can not only use it as I do, drinking it, but you can also use it as a poultice for that. So a very, very useful leaf indeed. Now in my jamu, I actually use Javanese ginseng, or ginseng jawa, as we call it. Any ginseng will do. Now I'm saying any ginseng will do. This isn't a true ginseng, like Tibetan ginseng. It's not a true ginseng. And different ginsengs have different effects. So if you're just using a ginseng, it's very important to know the effects of that ginseng. But I'm just using this along with other things for its general effects. It's very high in calcium, iron, potassium, magnesium and zinc. And very powerful natural compounds such as beta-testosterone. And that can be very good for symptoms of the menopause. And like so many of the things I use, it has very strong antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties. It can be used to treat, as a poultice, to treat minor skin irritations as well as cuts and bruises. It does, and some of the other things I'm going to put in the jamu actually suppress the appetite. This actually increases the appetite. So perhaps people will suggest that I put too much in my jamu and one thing balances out the other. And to a certain degree, I know that's true. And, you don't have to use everything that I'm using. But if you're using only a few things, then you need to be very careful on understanding exactly what each one of them does for you. This Javanese ginseng, it's also very useful for treating boils. So I've said it's good for skin disease, but apparently it's very good for treating boils, reducing the swelling. And as I've said, it's antibacterial. It does improve the appetite, as I say. So the trick is to mix it with other things, which is exactly what I do. So appetite suppressants. In lactating mothers, it helps produce breast milk production. And it supposedly helps increase the quality of sleep, maintains lung health, improves blood circulation, increases vitality, maximises the central nervous system performance, and maybe helps to prevent Alzheimer's. So a very useful thing. But as I say, please, if you can't get hold of Javanese ginseng, try a different ginseng. I'm now going to show you a number of powdered things that I put in my jamu and some dried leaves. Most of them I don't grow in the garden, so I buy them from either a Javanese herbalist or a Chinese herbalist. But the first of these I do actually grow, but it being the dry season, there's none able to show you at the moment. And that is Cabai Jawa, which means Javanese pepper, or it's also known as the long pepper. Very good for the liver, particularly for people who enjoy junk food, because it eliminates the toxins. It's used for weight loss, so there you go, it balances out the ginseng, reduces the risk of diabetes. Like so many of these, lowers bacterial infections. You can use it for coughs. Again, it solves indigestion, lowers fevers, soothes toothache, relieves asthma. So an exceedingly useful preparation. Now, something that I probably won't be buying again because of I'm not impressed that it's working, but also it's got a pretty nasty taste to it, and that's called Purwaceng, or the posh name Pimpinella Purwaceng, and it comes from the Jing Plateau in Java, or Dieng Plateau in Java, where Semar Mesem is meant to come from. So, I had to try it. And it is sold as the Javanese Viagra. But, yeah, well, it contains saponins and alkaloids, particularly strong in vitamin E. It supposedly increases male virility and overcome problems of sexual dysfunction. It apparently increases women's sexual arousal. It can be used for overcoming fungal infections, particularly yeast infections. Maintains the urinary tract function because it has a diuretic effect. So it's probably good for hypertension, blood pressure and losing weight. Smooths the blood circulation as well. So it smooths out high blood pressure. It can be used for pain and fever relief. It's got an analgesic effect, prevention of cancer and tumours, maintains muscle health, increases stamina, can be used against colds, dizziness, muscle aches, headaches, fatigues. So it's sold as a sort of a wonderful thing, but as I say, I've not been that impressed and the taste isn't that good. Now, one of the reasons why I use so many different things in my jamu is, you can't be at all sure of the strength that you're buying and how well they will work. So we've got one called Tibullus now, I keep buying it, but I'm not too certain how well it's working. Other names for it, devil's weed. No, I think Tibullus is what I've always heard it called. And yeah, it is used a bit like, it is used for sexual dysfunction, particularly erectile dysfunction. Increases sexual desire, increases the heart and circulatory system, reduces chest pain, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. It can be used for treating kidney problems, including kidney stones. It can be used as a diuretic, so therefore is useful in slimming. Good for skin disorders, particularly eczema, psoriasis, scabies. As I say, particularly it's used in erectile dysfunction issues. It's good for problems with digestion, including flatulence, constipation, for pains and swellings. Can be used for throat cancer. Supposedly good for other types of cancer, including nose tumours. Can tone a female's muscles after childbirth or after an abortion. It can actually cause an abortion. Can be used for treating gonorrhea, liver diseases such as hepatitis, inflammation, including rheumatism, headaches, dizziness, vertigo. So many things it's used for. Although I've got to say, I've not been that impressed with it myself, but I do keep trying it. And now I'm going to let some males into a secret. There's something of a wonder herb, or it's actually the bark of a tree that comes from Indonesia. And we've known it as Pasak Bumi, which literally means nailed to the ground. In Malaysia, it's known as Tongkat Ali, which means Ali's stick. In English, its common name is longjack, which is equally descriptive. Its posh name is Urochroma longfilia. Now you can guess what it's used for. It increases testosterone, and it really, really does. I can absolutely vouch for this. Now, increasing testosterone, it's not the same as something like Viagra. This is testosterone naturally depletes from your body as you get older. And yes, there are some obvious ways you can see it, but I think the most obvious effect of taking Pasak Bumi is after about a week, you become an awful lot less grumpy, assuming that you see that as a positive thing, of course. But regularly taking it does improve the testosterone. So in short, it makes you hornier. Other things, well, it also improves the sperm count, increases the time of erections, increases your muscle strength, increases the hardness of erections, and reduces anxiety and depression. So an absolutely wonderful, wonderful drug that I do take daily, and I absolutely swear by it. I really do. Oh, I just ought to add that while the Pasak Bumi I get from Indonesia is very pure and very good, it is available from China, and I believe some of the Malaysian Tongkat Ali also contains very high quantities of heavy metals. So do be a little bit careful with it. But certainly I can vouch for the Indonesian Pasak Bumi. Now, something I do use, it's a salt. Epsom salts, or garam English, which means English salt in Bahasa Indonesia. And it's as cheap as chips, so you might as well use it. It's magnesium sulfate, so it's one of the few naturally occurring sources of magnesium. So, it's very useful. Because we use showers rather than baths in Indonesia, you can't use it in a bath. But do you remember the old bath salts that your granny used to have? Well, they were just scented and coloured Epsom salts. So the best thing you can do is bath in it, because the skin does absorb it. If you haven't got a bath, you could soak your feet in it. But I put it in with my jamu. However, what I would say to you is that it is a laxative. So if you put too much in, then you will know about it. I mean, if you want to use it as a laxative, fine. But if you don't, yeah. It helps to promote sleep and reduces stress. So it has a very calming effect. because it's a laxative, it can help with constipation. It increases the body's recovery and the body's performance, particularly if you're exercising, reduces pains and swellings. And as I say, just be careful about the amount you put in, because it is a pretty strong laxative. Now, also for help keeping the weight off is down Jati Belanda or Dutch teak leaves. Now, I was recently doing a bit of research because I grow regular teak in the garden, and I find that regular teak leaves have very similar effects. So I shan't be buying this anymore because I can get it from a garden, and it helps to suppress the appetite. It's something of a laxative, cleanses the stomach. So yeah, it's used for losing weight, getting rid of residual fat. But as I say, I'll use the regular teak leaves from my garden in future. Now, the next herb that I use is Ephedra. And those of you who misspent your life at places like Wigan Casino, as I did, will remember the old ephedrine. And indeed, we used to go over to Germany and buy tablets called DF118s, which were ephedrine, sold in Germany for appetite suppression. But I mean, it's very similar structure to an amphetamine. So it increases the metabolic rate. It keeps you awake. It suppresses the appetite. But there is an increase in blood pressure that goes along with it. It is pretty reliable for short to medium term weight loss. But, you know, be careful with it. And we used to be very, very wary of it because we used to abuse things so much that if you take too much, then it will cause internal bleeding. But, you know, I use it a little as trying to help keep my weight down. Now, I've got another one. It's called horny goatweed. So you can tell what it's about. Epimedium is its posh name. And yeah, it's used for erectile dysfunction. Now you might be wondering why I'm taking so many of these things for my stamina and erectile dysfunction. Well, just suffice it to say that my wife is 18 years younger than me. And so, yeah, I do it for her. And indeed, when I buy some of these preparations from a Chinese pharmacist in Jakarta, he always laughs and says to my wife, "You're lucky because Indonesian men wouldn't waste the money on their wives." Well, quite apart from erectile dysfunction, it can be used for hay fever, fatigue, and osteoporosis. But yeah, it may possibly be useful as an anti-cancer drug. It could be useful for HIV, postmenopausal bone loss prevention. But I mean, it's used for erectile dysfunction. And particularly if you're using Western medicine for things like beta blockers, think for high blood pressure, high cholesterol, etc., it can have an effect on your ability to get an erection, and therefore this is just a natural remedy that's used. So yeah, I add all of these things to the preparation I made as a gargle. So I add some more water in to that and reboil it along with all of these. Now, it's an awful lot of things I've used, and you know, it's just that they're handy to me. I'm probably using far too many, and as I say, some cancel out the others. So, you know, it might be a bit crazy, but, you know, these are just things I can get hold of. So what I do is I boil this for quite some time until I get a nice, good sludgy mixture. I like to drink it cold. You may find that it's somewhat bitter, and no harm in putting particularly some natural honey in. In fact, a very good thing to do. But we do have a saying in Java that the jamu's no good unless it's bitter. I don't think that's true, but, you know, it's a saying. And then what I will do is I will probably keep the leaves and everything and keep using this for about 4 days, I'd say. Keep adding the powders and the other things every day to it, but I reuse the leaves for about 4 days before throwing it away. Now, after the 4 days, when I come to use it again, the gargle tincture that included the turmeric, etc., won't need refreshing. So I probably don't bother putting those into it until the next time I need some gargle, and we start the process again. But yeah, I make this every day, and I normally drink it mid-afternoon. It's probably better to drink it first thing in the morning, but I never seem to make it at the right time for that because I like to drink it cool. So yeah, I drink it mid-afternoon. But yeah, that's Jamu. Good luck to you. Well, I really hope you've enjoyed this. Because these are real events, I can't say how regularly I'm going to be adding to this subsection. You know, because I don't know how often they're going to occur. But I would imagine that they'll be at least every couple of months, maybe monthly. Now, if you'd like to know when that's going to be, please subscribe and hit the button, and you'll get information on when new ones are released. I'd love you to make comments and ask questions, and if you do, I'll attempt to answer them as honestly as I can. I promise you that there's no attempt on this channel or this part of this channel of me. There'll be no attempt by me at any type of subterfuge. I'll try to be as honest and open as I possibly can be. Inevitably, there will be some of you who disagree with my interpretation, and, you know, we can agree to disagree. But what you're seeing is real stuff here. What I'd love you to do, if you enjoyed this, is look at my other sections. Particularly, I've written novels about magic in Java, and they contain much more information in them, especially me trying to understand the theories of magic, the psychology of it, and I try and intersperse them with a sort of spiritual dimension. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and God bless you.